So after the Seahawks beat the Rams on Thursday Night Football, the 49ers have a chance to control their destiny for the number 1 seed. But in order to do it, they must win out. As for Week 16, that requires beating the Colts on Monday Night Football. We'll discuss the injuries and the key matchups that could play a role in this game on today's 49K Pod.
You're listening to the 49 Carats podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Friday, December 19th, last show before Christmas. And we got a Monday Night Football game for the 49ers coming up. So we're going to see our team on prime time. Just last night on prime time, we watched the Seahawks and the Rams go at it. The Seahawks edged them out. So that means the 49ers have a chance at the number 1 seed if the Seahawks lose and if the 49ers, of course, continue to win their games. And so, like I said, for Week 16, that means this is a pretty big matchup, as will be all the remaining games. But as always, I got my co-host for Friday. We got KP here from Niners Nation and Dezi, our resident injury expert. How you guys doing?
Great, man. Glad the holidays are coming up here. But no complaints at all. How about that game last night, right? And how about that game what it meant to the 49ers?
Yeah, I said I woke up like it was Christmas morning.
Can you imagine after the 49ers play the Rams, even thinking about the possibility of being the 1 seed, and not even at the end of the season, 5 weeks later? That the NFL is so wild.
What's even crazier, I think, is like the 49ers have gotten fortunate enough that I feel like they've moved up or like they've found themselves in these situations when they're not playing. Like yesterday was Thursday Night Football. I felt like the bye week was huge for them as well. Last week when the Bears won or the Bears lost as well. There's just a lot of movement, I think, that didn't even involve the 49ers having to lift a finger. I love when that happens. But yeah, I mean, the 49ers still have to, they still have some work to do, right? So I think these remaining games are going to loom large in the playoff picture, of course, as it does for all these teams still in the hunt. So we'll talk about it. But as always, we're going to start off talking about these injuries. So because this game is on Monday night, I was so silly. I was waiting for the injury report, but we don't get it on Friday for Monday night games. Okay, we get the practice report. So we don't know who's going to be in or out quite yet. But we do have, I think, some ideas, right? All right, so as far as the players who did not practice today, Friday, December 19th, Ricky Pearsall with that ankle injury and the knee, and then a linebacker, Nick Martin, with the concussion still not practicing. But the positive side of that news is that both were seen working on a side field. Now, before we talk about anything else here, Dezi, I think I want to focus on Ricky Pearsall and just, in your opinion, the possibilities that he can go out there. I know we don't always have all of the information that we need to, make that call, but given the fact that he did irritate that PCL that's been lingering for him pretty much all season, how do you figure that he may be available for Monday night?
This is fascinating because I think the answer to this question lies in what is the status of his ankle, right? So I think the injury, the knee is in one leg, the ankle is in the other leg. I don't think it's the same leg. And so you don't have a dominant leg, right? You've got an injury on both legs. So if the ankle's feeling pretty good and you get at least 50% better with the PCL, I think there's definitely a decent chance of him, suiting up on Monday. But if the ankle injury is, maybe a little far off, I feel like they're not really talking about the ankle. They're focusing more on the knee. But to me, both are valid here because you kind of have to assess what's the status with either one. So you don't want to have an unstable ankle on one leg that's going to compromise the knee injury on the other leg. So I think for now, if anyone figures it out that the ankle is strong and sturdy and not really much of a problem, can be taped up and he can suit up just based on an ankle injury alone, I feel better about him going out there with a PCL.
And you say that because it's more about putting pressure on the ankle, right? Because that's where he's going to do more of his cuts and whatnot.
Right. The stability of it, right? So if you've got an ankle that's injured, you can, if he goes to cut and he tweaks the ankle, there's nothing stopping the other leg. Like the other leg can't really compensate for that, right? So you worry about that. And it's a different worry if they were in the same leg, but it just stinks that he's got both ankle and knee. But I think the way that they're downplaying the ankle, I feel like the impression is, hey, the ankle's okay. We're more worried about the knee. So then that gives me a little bit of hope that he's maybe 50% chance he'll suit up on Monday.
Is this a situation where you only do better like with rest, right? Is there anything else he can do besides get off his knee or get off his ankle?
The ankle, I think there's things you can do. There's range of motion, there's strengthening, there's lots that you can do to recover it. The PCL, that's a ligament. That's a ligament that's in there. It's a little bit trickier. You definitely want to make sure you've got your quad is strong to stabilize the knee. And it's probably stuff he's already been doing this whole season. So I don't know that it's too far behind in terms of strength and that type of thing. But sometimes if you tweak the knee and you get some fluid in there, it can start to feel a little unstable. I think we talked about that when he first tweaked it, and he was talking about how it feels loose in there. Sometimes the swelling and the fluid that can build up in the knee from a little tweak like that can make you feel a little unstable in the knee. So like I said, it just kind of, to me, the question is, number one, what's the true status of the ankle? And then number two, how much better is he in the knee? We've seen players go through seasons with PCLs without problems. I mean, one that I can think of is a mobile quarterback in Lamar Jackson, and it kind of affected him. And I think it was a year that he was getting his contract, trying to get his contract renewed. But so it doesn't mean he's down and out permanently, but it just means we have to be very careful here.
What do you make of Pearsall coming back into the game after he suffered the ankle injury? Because remember, he suffered that one after his first catch, came back, and then it was in the fourth quarter that he irritated the PCL. But he looked pretty good when he came back in, having dealt with that ankle still. So, does that give you some bit of confidence that, okay, maybe the ankle isn't as bad, and maybe that's why they're not making as big a deal of it?
100%. That's where it's kind of like, I don't know how much the ankle is even involved here. It sounds primarily the knee, but you kind of have to, when you're talking about injury and an athlete has both, you kind of have to talk about both of them. But no, he was able to play the full game. Now, did the ankle tweak lead to, something where it compromised the knee? Who knows? But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And who knows, the 49ers can also make this decision based on what happens this weekend. I mean, you already had the Seahawks winning yesterday, but if the Lions lose tomorrow, that could help them out even more. And maybe they feel like, okay, let's just give Ricky another week. I don't know realistically if that's how teams really make their decisions, KP, with a resounding, no shake of the head. Yeah, so I guess, what does that mean for you, KP? You think that means, I don't care, I'm going to play him anyway, as long as he's able to play, regardless of, the other games, right?
So the way that I read Kyle Shanahan's, just tone, voice, words the other day is, hey, Ricky, we know you're hurt. You're going to play. It's going to hurt. You're going to play. You're going to have 4 or 5 days to rest up, maybe in between, 4 or 5 days to rest up afterward. But guess what? You are going to play. Regardless if the Lions win, lose, Packers win, lose, whatever. We need you. You're our best. And guess what? You're going to suck it up. Have fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's crunch time now, right? He needs his guys out there, and, these are very important games.
You can sit if we get a bye week. That's when you can rest. You can rest when we on our days off. But no, you are getting game checks. We drafted you in the first round. We need you, big dog.
Yeah. I feel like that's accurate. And we get an extra day, right? We're playing Monday Night Football. So,
Yeah.
Which is huge for him.
For sure. Definitely a benefit. So those are the players that right now are, up in the air, I would say, for being active Monday night, but we'll keep tabs on it. We'll probably get the official game report at some point tomorrow. But as far as players that are trending in the right direction to be back, we got Spencer Burford. Well, he's not back, but he was at practice today, so that's a good sign. He didn't miss any games, but he was
They did
dealing
just
with
send
And
that
no
out.
high
I don't
ankle
know if you saw it. Yes.
Oh, did they?
They did. So Burford was upgraded from not practicing to limited, which is a good sign, right? I was kind of worried because earlier in the week they worked out a couple guards and like, oh man, must have got some bad news. And then he didn't practice on Thursday. I was like, oh boy, here comes the 7th round rookie. But the fact that he did get upgraded today is probably a good sign, and slowly but surely he should trend in the right direction.
Yeah, they rolled out the high ankle sprain on him, so that was a good sign for sure.
Very good.
And Jordan Elliott coming back should be big too after he missed last week's game with a knee injury that happened right before the game. So that should provide a boost for the run defense. And then also on continuing on the defensive side, Tatum Bethune continuing to practice this week, Sam O, Eric Kendricks, and also Yetur Gross-Matos. So when you look at all those guys potentially coming back for this game, I feel better about what the defense could look like against this Colts team. Definitely should provide a boost. But as far as any of those injuries that are from the players that have missed a few games, like Dezi, are there any that just due to the nature of the injury you'd be kind of concerned of re-aggravation or something like that, or you feel like these guys have gotten enough rest?
I mean, I feel like it looks pretty good. Yetur Gross-Matos is an interesting one, right? Hamstring. And it's been a long time. Week 5. I mean, he must have tore it. It must have been a heck of an injury for him to be out this long. But you can never be sure about a hamstring. That's always the one that I'm always, looking sideways. Got the side eye going on that. But otherwise, we're just going to have to see how they progress and see what happens when we get him in the game.
It would be tough to be any more patient with him, right, Dezi? Because week 5, and this was an injury, he's had multiple injuries where Kyle Shanahan said during the offseason, we don't want to practice him multiple days in a row. So think about how terrified they are of him, not just getting injured, but re-aggravating any of the injuries that he's dealt with.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's the one that I would, I'm side-eyeing for sure.
Oh, God. Well, hopefully he could come back. And if he comes back, hopefully he could stay out there because the 49ers could sure use him for this stretch, especially in the pass rush department. But Dezi, thank you so much for the injury insight as always. And we'll talk next week.
All right. Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays to you, Dezi. Peace. All righty. So let's take a quick look at how things are shaping up on the Colts side of things. We got cornerback Sauce Gardner still not practicing. Their left tackle, Bernard Raymond, not practicing. And then a couple of limited players, Anthony Richardson and left guard Quentin Nelson. That might be a big one with the wrist injury, but he's limited. So I'd expect he probably is good to go. DeForest Buckner is a full participant, so expect he's going to be good to go for this one as well, and probably, feeling pretty good to play his former team. Aside from that, I mean, is there anything that strikes you from this injury report or just guys that have been missing games for the Colts?
No, they made it seem like, just following some of the Colts people, they made it seem like Sauce maybe has a chance, but I mean, getting DeForest Buckner back is as so he hasn't played since week 9. He had this game circled, and he's probably going to have a big say in how this game goes as well.
For sure. Well, we're going to start off looking at the Colts offense though before anything else. So they have a pretty good crop of wide receivers. You got Michael Pittman Jr., Josh Downs, Alec Pierce, and then you also have the rookie tight end, Tyler Warren. I mean, all those guys for formidable pass catching options. And then you have Jonathan Taylor, one of the best, if not the best running back in the entire league right now. Definitely in the MVP race as well. But things have like dramatically shifted for the Colts with their quarterback situation. You don't have Daniel Jones anymore. You pick up 44-year-old Phillip Rivers. We'll definitely talk more about Rivers in this one. But I do want to talk about the Colts offensive line as well. Very good offensive line, headlined, of course, by Quentin Nelson, who we just mentioned. So what's like I'm not even going to ask you. I think we know what the biggest threat of this offense is, especially when you think about the 49ers defensively and what they've been struggling with, right? I think it's Jonathan Taylor. And I think for me, like that's my biggest cautious matchup of the week. I mean, he has the ability, the talent to completely turn this game on its head, and it could get ugly for the 49ers if they aren't careful. He has 1,443 rushing yards on the season, 16 touchdowns. Both of those lead the league among running backs. And what's crazy is of those 1,400 some yards, 1,095 of those have come after contact. So if that tells you anything, he's forced 81 missed tackles, also leads the league. The 49ers recently have been dealing with missed tackles on their end. So that's the one thing I'm most worried about. Robert Saleh was expecting that after the bye week that would tighten up, except it really didn't. What was it, 11 missed tackles last week?
Yeah, I know they were in double digits.
So you just can't have that again. And yes, I mentioned that some of those guys we mentioned potentially coming back, like Bethune, could definitely help the run defense. I mean, it better help. Otherwise, like I said, this is something that could get ugly for the 49ers if they continue to have that issue.
Yeah, and one of the things that may be working in the 49ers' favor is if the Colts end up starting Jalen Travis again, so another backup tackle, right? Just because it brings that offensive line, which is very good, as you said, just down a notch, and it kind of evens the playing field, levels the playing field out. What I think is very important when you look at the injury report, so you get Jordan Elliott back, and he's been the guy who started all season. Like, that's your veteran. That's the guy you rely on against the run. And I think it's important to note that he has been very good. So Gross Matos, getting him back in passing situations means you can take Alfred Collins and like Kalia Davis off in passing situations. So you have a little bit more of a pass rush. Having Sam O play the run as opposed to Bryce Huff and Cleveland Farrell, like that's not what they're going to do well. It's never been things they do well. So just basically getting the injured guys back and knocking the other role players back into roles that they're accustomed to playing. I think that's going to go a long way in holding down the Colts offense and kind of limiting them to what they're good at.
Yeah, rotations are key with this 49ers defensive line, and they haven't always had the luxury of that because guys have been in and out with different injuries. So, yeah, it'll be big if they could get those guys back and those guys can finish this game. Should provide a boost. And like we say, they're going to need it. The Colts are 6th in rushing yards per carry, averaging 4.8, and they're 1st in rush offense EPA with a 19.5 expected points added due to their run game. Other things here as well that I want to point out, and I mentioned it kind of already, like there are some concerns I have about the 49ers run defense, which is also why I have this as a cautious matchup. This season, the 49ers are 12th in rushing yards allowed per game, just a little bit over 100 yards, 106.1. In their last 5, they're allowing 130 rushing yards per game. So that kind of shows the bit of the shift that we've seen. I think part of that has to do with Bethune missing some games among other guys as well. And so again, like if that's something they can clean up and by getting some guys back, it improves the run defense, then they might be in good shape. But yeah, in the last 5 games, 28th in rush defense EPA, negative 1.5 expected points added. So this is something they have to kind of put all hands on deck for. I would imagine Robert Saleh knows that as well.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, right, put everybody in the box, like force, if you're going to lose, make the 44-year-old throw the ball down the field, the same 44-year-old who went 2 for 8. So I would imagine it's an all-in effort to take away the player on the screen who, for the longest period, people running as a running back and win the MVP. Like, that's how good of a season he's had.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, he definitely deserves to be in that conversation. A couple of other things I wanted to point out that I came across. So as far as nickel personnel, the 49ers have been using nickel personnel a lot, highest rate in the league. And they're doing like big nickel stuff as well that, has some success for them. One problem there, Jonathan Taylor is really good against nickel personnel. He's averaging 5.8 yards per carry, fourth most. And, I can't see it because I covered the number. 9 rushing touchdowns, league high against nickel personnel. So that's something they got to be careful on as well. I mean, what do you think about the big nickel package that the 49ers have been doing? I think a big part of that package is so you can stop the run, right? And you just have an extra safety, big guy in the box just for scenarios like this one. But when you're going up against a running back or just an offense in general that has success against that, I mean, how do you counter that? Is it something you'd be worried about, or do you think the 49ers big nickel defense is the way to go here?
So I'm fascinated to see if we see like Tatum Bethune, Eric Kendricks, and D Winters on the field at the same time, because what they've tried to do is use that big nickel with Jason Pinnock, who's a good athlete. Like, he can fill the hole when he's unblocked, but whenever he has to take on a blocker, as you'd expect, he's still a DB. And he's made a living in this league playing near the line of scrimmage, but that doesn't mean he's done it well. And I think we're seeing that over the past couple of weeks where like he just ends up getting blocked out of the picture and they're down in the math game. They're down numbers, and that's how you get these long runs. So I would expect Saleh to have a nice little game plan here, but what they've been doing, who they've been doing it against hasn't worked. So assuming that would go well against a team like the Colts, a team like Shane Steichen is calling, and he was lauded as one of the best play callers. So I think we're going to see a change up here. I would imagine we're going to see a change up because what they've done just hasn't worked very well. And this is just a bigger team in general. They're going to use their tight ends. Their wide receivers are very good size. So there's a reason Taylor has the yards he does.
Yeah, and the other part of that is in shotgun. When the Colts are in shotgun, Jonathan Taylor averages 4.8 yards per carry and 6 touchdowns on those carries. That leads the league. 49ers defense allowing 5.3 yards per carry on shotgun runs. That's second most. So again, like just these two things, is something I'm just a little cautious of. I'm a little worried about. So I'm interested to see how Robert Saleh just kind of defends against the Colts. But I do expect that, I mean, like we were saying, all hands on deck, stack the box, and just see what happens.
Statistically, they're better with Upton Stout on the field. Like, I don't understand why they need the big nickel snaps. Just use Stout. He's a better run defender than a lot of linebackers that they have. So I know he's undersized, but he doesn't play to his size. So if anything, this might be one of those scenarios where you go down swinging with Stout.
Yeah, for sure. We'll see if we see him a little bit more in this one. So the other guy that I'm a little bit cautious of, and not that I wouldn't be cautious of the wide receivers, but I do think that Phillip Rivers being the quarterback now definitely limits the ceiling of some of these pass catchers. But one that I think could serve as a security blanket, as a lot of tight ends do, Tyler Warren, who has been absolutely great this season, 718 receiving yards, fourth among tight ends. 450 of those 718 yards have come after the catch. That's second most among tight ends. So again, when we're talking about the 49ers missing tackles, taking bad angles and things like that, that's something you just can't afford to do with an athlete like Warren. And they use him a ton in the red zone, 28.3% target rate in the red zone. All 4 of his touchdowns have been scored there. So something the 49ers, I think, need to look out for, because when it comes to defending tight ends in the red zone, they haven't been all that great. They've allowed 6 touchdowns in the red zone this season. That's fourth most. And they've allowed 6 touchdowns to tight ends in the last 6 weeks.
Yeah, suboptimal, less than ideal. And again, he's like a big body, but this is where that player like Eric Kendricks might come into play, right? Because they have struggled to defend tight ends, because they have coverage safeties and linebackers who just aren't used to playing the position or aren't used to playing that position. So Kendricks has seen everything under the sun offensively. So that would be a guy who I would imagine they stick Warren on. Honestly, and they don't do this anymore, but the one area where I thought Lenore really shined was guarding tight ends, but now he's on the outside, and now he's not playing that nickel position. So that's where it kind of gets a little wonky as well. But again, I would expect him to have some kind of curveball here, because if you're just hoping that, hey, you're going to go out there, roll the ball out, and expect to tackle Tyler Warren after the catch, because that's what they're going to try to do. They're going to make him be a yak guy. That's where he thrives at. That's where he shines. So it's going to be a really fun chess matchup between the two, like between two of the best play callers at what they do. But yeah, the one thing you can't do is let Warren get ahead of steam and get going after the catch.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm very curious to see what Eric Kendricks looks like after going so long without playing and joining this team. So we'll see how he contributes this time around. But let's get to the favorable things for the 49ers. And yes, Phillip Rivers is part of that, just because, as we're saying, we got thick Phillip Rivers. Yeah, it's real picture, not Photoshop, of 44-year-old Phillip Rivers, who last week against Seattle was 18 of 27. That's a 66.7% completion percentage, only 120 yards passing. That's 4.4 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Yeah, 4.7 air yards per target. 37% of his pass attempts were at or behind the line of scrimmage, and really just trying to get the ball out quickly. 2.36 time to throw. So he was just taking whatever was the first thing that he saw in his like short vicinity. And I have to imagine that helps the 49ers. Like, that plays into what the 49ers would love, opposing quarterbacks to do, right? And I think for the last few weeks, they've been wanting to keep everything in front of them. They should have no problem doing that against Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like he was kind of playing hot potato last week, just trying to get the ball out of his hands as quick as possible. He was 2 for 8 on passes, I believe, on beyond 10 yards. So that kind of plays into, like you said, that's what the 49ers want to do, because A, it doesn't expose the lack of pass rush, and B, you're probably not going to throw the ball down the field when you're throwing it that quickly. So the corners and the safeties don't get exposed in one-on-one coverage. But Rivers is the kind of quarterback who was going to be ultra patient, and he will take those 5-6 yard gains. So it will be death by 1,000 cuts, but he is the kind of quarterback to get them in the right situations and execute that at the same time, which is why it's even more imperative for the 49ers to really win those early downs and make it 2nd and 8. Mm-hmm. So Rivers does have to throw the ball down the field, and maybe Saleh's able to get creative and get him into a look that he's seen once or twice, but he's just not familiar with.
Also, you mentioned one stat that I had here as well on the 2 of 8 on throws 10 or more yards. Also on throws that were 2.5 seconds or longer to throw, 5 of 10 for 28 yards and an interception. So that also tells you, like, he had too much time to throw. He wasn't necessarily making the right decisions, or not sure. Maybe things just sort of fell apart, or maybe it's the timing thing that he just hasn't had a lot of time to work with this group of receivers, and that could throw some things off. Colts also didn't have a play of 20 or more yards last week. First time that's happened this season after starting red hot on offense. But not only in the comments asked, how much of Rivers' struggles were him, and how much was it just playing the Seahawks defense? Seahawks defense, very good, legit, really good pass rush as well. So like, having this one game sample size of the 44-year-old Phillip Rivers, like, in this offense, like, what do you think, KP? Like, how much of it do you think was Rivers versus just playing that Seahawks defense? Yeah,
so maybe the common perception might be Seattle's defense isn't as good as we all thought after what happened last night, but I think that was more about the offense they ran into as opposed to like what they've been all season. Seattle's a tough matchup for pretty much anybody outside of Los Angeles and San Francisco. So, and they showed it. Their physicality is insane. They can get up in your face. And the Colts have these long, lanky receivers who are more possession type, and that plays right into the hands of what Seattle does, and especially just their pass rush too and their speed. So I think it was a little bit of both. I really don't think Rivers played poorly, honestly. I know the stats don't really say, oh, you got to bring this guy out for another start, but for what they could do, right, for what they had under center, I thought it looked about as well as expected, or as well as you could hope for from a Colts perspective. But like for as much as we talk about the lack of pass rush, will we see a different version? Like that's what I think we're kind of taking for granted here. Like, will they all of a sudden have a downfield passing game, knowing what the Niners have produced from a pass rush standpoint? So that I think that's kind of the area that I'm interested in, because they do have the advantage in terms of like Pierce and Pittman versus Green and Lenore on the outside. And not to mention Josh Downs is a guy who seemingly always can find a way to get 5 to 7 catches a game. And you have the rookie in the slot. So it's going to be a really interesting game plan. I'm fascinated to see how it turns out on this side of the ball, because it could go so many ways. The Colts could score 24 points or they could score 12 points. So like, I don't know what's going to happen.
Can't wait to get your score prediction here in a bit then. But yeah, it really could go either way, even with this Phillip Rivers thing. I know the 49ers pass rush does not inspire a lot of confidence. And we've often this season alone have looked at some matchups where it's like, oh, this should be in favor of the 49ers defense, but then the 49ers pass rush is non-existent. And then suddenly you see what a quarterback with time could do. And we've seen the 49ers secondary get beat on some, bigger throws downfield. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Colts tried it a few times. And I also wouldn't be surprised if it worked once or twice, right? And sometimes those things could decide a game. So yes, I have it as a favorable, but anything could happen. Let's take a quick look at the Colts defense. So Cam Bynum and Nick Cross, the safeties, Zaire Franklin, Jermaine Pratt, the linebackers, the corners, Jonathan Edwards, Kenny Moore in the slot, Mekhi Blackman in the on the outside. And then as far as their defensive line, we already talked about DeForest Buckner, who's slated to come back. They got Kwity Paye as well. And I think one of the more appealing matchups to me, or intriguing matchups, is Laiatu Latu going up against Trent Williams. I think Latu's been awesome this season. Trent Williams is getting into form. Like he's getting better each and every week. At 37 years old, it's kind of crazy this late into the season. He's kind of getting into his stride, right? But I'm expecting that one to be a really good one. What would be your main concerns for this one and that Colts defense?
Yeah, Latu's going to be welcome to Williams Island, I think. I think it is a fantastic matchup. And you mentioned how he's getting better every week. I really think that, man, just watching him, the bye week did wonders for both him and Christian McCaffrey. I thought they both looked just fresh, right? And as you expected, right, veterans. But I do think the Colts have a couple interior guys, and obviously that goes without saying with DeForest Buckner back, but I think he's going to help bring out some of the interior pass rush. So I would be a little concerned with Spencer Burford or whoever plays left guard. And to that effect, Dominic Puni, just because he's so young. They have a guy, what's his name? D-tackle, Abador, I forgot. Adewale, I think is what his name is. A Northwestern guy who's just a really supreme athlete. He's a very good pass rusher, and he's really quick off the ball. He's the kind of guy that can give the 49ers offensive line fits. Just lanky, speedy, quick, disruptive, and that interior pressure is really what would give the 49ers offense issues. So, like, that's who I would be worried about. Honestly, I think tackle-wise, both like Kwity Paye is more of a one-trick pony. So like that kind of bodes well for Colton McKivitz. He just has to know I need to get to my spot and I'll be okay. And then Williams, you're going to take him no matter who. So if they can really hold up against the interior pressure that the Colts have, I think the 49ers have a good opportunity to pick the Colts apart, honestly.
Yeah, I think so too. And so I do have the 49ers as a favorable, and it's because it feels like Trent Williams, the 49ers offense is just catching steam here as they head into this stretch. And I think that's huge. Since week 5, 49ers have converted a league high 49.6% of their third downs. Over their past 6 games, 34.8% of their passing plays have gained 10 or more yards. That's the highest rate in the league in that span. And they've scored on a league high 55.7% of their possessions. And we've seen it, right? Like they've been super efficient, especially in situational football situations. So, I think this is going to be, like you said, an intriguing one between, these play callers, and Kyle Shanahan has been doing a hell of a job so far this season, and the offense really getting into form. Brock Purdy looking like himself again, or like the good version of himself, So I think as long as he does that and continues to just take what the defense is giving him, not try to force a situation, continue to make anticipation throws, I think that should be enough. But we'll see. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm just saying like you really have to be somewhat calculated here. And I think the 49ers can do that.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I think let's just the Colts are going to win a one-on-one matchup a few times a game. Every NFL team does that, whatever. But I don't think that stopped Kyle Shanahan from being aggressive, and I think that's really going to play into their hands. So down the middle of the field, the Colts are very susceptible. The last thing you want to be is weak down the spine against a team that has Kyle Shanahan, George Kittle, and Christian McCaffrey. So not only will the checkdowns be available for Brock and those turn into 4, 5, 6 yards, but as we've seen with Kittle, man, he was stiff arming dudes to the ground last week. He had a couple catches after 20 yards or whatever. So these checkdowns are turning into explosive plays for the 49ers. Like, that is huge. I know it's the Titans, but the Colts linebackers do not match up well with just about anybody, let alone Kittle and McCaffrey. So I really think the Colts are bottom 10 at defending tight ends. So that's pretty much all you need to know is like where they're going to attack. And they have a linebacker. They have a guy who I think is going to be under the Shanoscope. He's struggled mightily the past few games, and the best offenses that they faced have really attacked Zaire Franklin. So he was targeted 7 times against the Seahawks last week, and 84 yards, 6 receptions, and gave him 4 first downs a few weeks ago. Patrick Mahomes, he attacked Franklin 6 times, 5 receptions, 82 yards, 3 touchdowns. So I think that's where we see right down the middle of the field, and maybe it's Kittle, maybe it's Pearsall, whoever it is, they're probably going to have success, and I think that's where we see Shanahan pepper targets.
Okay, great. Because that's what I was going to ask you too. I couldn't quite figure out, based on what I was researching on the Colts defense, who would be like the 49ers' best breakout option in this one. Last week, you called it with Ricky Pearsall. That was a great one. And I think we might have mentioned Kittle as a favorable as well. He had a good game too. But this one, it really kind of feels like it could be a toss-up, right? Sure. But, pointing out some of those defenders that could be susceptible, as you mentioned, I think maybe we look at that instead, and whoever is lined up against him at any point could end up getting a good play. So yeah, all in all, I think if the 49ers just take advantage of those matchups, the offense should be able to keep up and score points. Hopefully the defense just does their job as well, gets some stops here and there, and can keep Jonathan Taylor at bay. Again, we always talk about those players who will get theirs regardless, right? Jonathan Taylor is one of those guys. But if you can limit him at least just a little bit, that's your opportunity there. So, KP, let's get into the score prediction. Haven't really thought about this one all that much. I'll let you go first.
Sure. So I think it's going to be – I think last week everybody's going to see the 18-16 score between the Colts and the Seahawks and think maybe this one's lower scoring as well. I do not. I think we're going to see a game play closer in the 60s, honestly. So I think the 49ers get around, I'll say 29, and I think the Colts end up scoring 23. So I think it's going to be relatively higher scoring for what people think, but I think the 49ers are going to do whatever they want for the most part, because most teams against the Colts have been able to move the ball. Like, they do have some good one-on-one matchups, but overall where they're weak at is just not areas you can be weak at against the Kyle Shanahan offense. And statistically, they've been a lot better from a success rate standpoint, when they need to be on the ground, and that'll only make life easier for Brock Purdy and not having to worry about converting 3rd and 13 or whatnot, which he's done a really good job. But I think this is a game the Colts sell out to make Brock Purdy beat them, and I think they're going to regret that. I think it's going to be a pretty good game for Brock. And I think you're talking about the potential breakout people. Maybe it's like Demarcus Robinson over the middle on some plays. Maybe it's Kendrick Bourne back with some plays over the middle. I think it's going to be one of those role players stepping up. But overall, I think it's going to be a Brock Purdy game, and I think he's going to it might be annoying without the Brock Purdy love after this game. I think he's going to have a big game.
We would really love to see that. And again, like Brock, last 2 games has been great. So if he keeps on with it, especially on prime time, it'd be much appreciated by all 49er fans. My score prediction is 28-22. I do think the 49ers will win this one, but it'll feel close, I think, for much of this game.
It's going to be a very good game because these are 2 really good teams, 2 really well-coached teams too.
Yep, I think they'll be going back and forth for much of it. And then that's okay, as long as 49ers come out on top. But all right, y'all. Thank you so much, KP, for joining, bringing your insight as always. Thanks everyone that tuned in, everyone that was in the chat. Appreciate you all. Make sure you guys like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Hit that notification bell so you know when I go live. We'll be live Monday night after that game, so make sure you guys check that out. Audio listeners, leave a rating, leave a review. For now, folks, have a good rest of your Friday. Have a great weekend. Talk to you Monday. All right. Peace.